Good morning, fly tyers. This is Mike Dunnaway, the Flatland Fly Tyer here. And this morning we're going to be tying a fly that is probably the biggest, ugliest fly you'll ever see. This is called the girdle bug. Now, supposedly a couple of guys that developed this fly years and years ago were looking for a material to use for rubber legs, and they somehow came across an old girdle and cut the girdle into strips and created those rubber legs. That's the story anyway. So now we use a variety of materials, but this is the fly today, and I'm not sure what it resembles, maybe a stonefly, but it really does catch fish. It's very effective, but boy is it ugly. If I was going to rename this fly, I would call it the Big Ugly. So I've got a size 6 curved nymph hook in the vise and a size 3/32 tungsten bead already on it, and we'll start our thread ahead of the bead, right behind the eye. Cut off our tag. And our leg material is not from a girdle, and you can use some regular rubber legs, but we're going to use a material called Spanflex by Wapsi. And it is the curliest, most unreally material you ever saw. It's got some stretch to it, but not as much stretch as typical rubber legs. But it works great on this fly because the more unruly this thing is, the more effective it is. So the first tie-in of legs, this will actually be an antenna. We're going to tie those in, wrap the Spanflex around the thread and tie that in right behind the eye. Strip it forward and tie it down. Now we can whip finish. And if you want to trim those at all, now's the time to do it. They're about to length anyway. Now we can push our bead as far forward as we can. There we go. And to further stabilize the bead, I'm going to use several wraps of 0.015 lead wire. And push that up into the cone of the bead. Now we can restart the thread. Come back up and lash down our lead wraps. And we don't come back too far, maybe about 1/8 of an inch before we put in our first set of legs. I've got some sections of the Spanflex pre-cut. The length is really not critical. Probably the longer the better. And we're going to tie these down with some X wraps. trying to keep the spam flex on top of the hook and extending from the hook shank at a 90-degree angle. Come back an eighth of an inch, a little bit more for our second set of legs. This is probably the hardest part of tying this fly, is getting these legs positioned where you want them. You can move them around a little bit with your X-wraps. These are looking pretty good. Back another eighth of an inch, a little bit more. And even up those legs as we need to. Becomes more of a challenge the more legs we have on this fly. The other legs try to help us with the positioning of the next set of legs, but they're not too much help. That's pretty good. Now our last set of legs, really it's not the legs, it's going to be the tail. And like the antenna, we'll wrap those around the tying thread and tie that in on top of the hook. Okay, now we can tie in our chenille. Our chenille is a black and brown variegated chenille. We'll pull some of those fibers off of the core for tie-in. Tie that in right in front of the tail. Now work our thread forward, trying not to trap those legs. Bring our thread up right behind the bead. Now we can wrap our chenille, again being careful not to trap the legs. And this, the chenille will help direct those legs out to 90 degrees. and lash down our chenille right behind the bead with the tying thread. Snip off our excess. This is a heavy fly with that big tungsten bead on there. Whip finish. Snip off the thread and apply a little dollop of head cement. Now you can do some trimming of the legs here, but I got those legs pretty much the way I want them. You know, you just got to be careful not to get the legs too short. The longer and more unruly those legs are, the more effective this fly is. So there you have the girdle bug, or as I call it, the big ugly. And it is a fish catching machine. Works great in the spring and summer, and fish it along the shoreline with a dropper or by itself, and it's very effective for catching trout, especially big brown trout. Have fun fishing it.